welcome everybody. This is Pesach from Sfat, Israel, and we really appreciate you being here with us. And there's Terry, our co-host from Tennessee. And today is here in Israel is January 16th, 2020. And it's 3:05 in the morning. We're getting started a little late, but we thank you for being with us. And this is B'nai Noach Connection with Israel, or to Israel. And it's really great to have you guys come every week. And just sitting here with us right now is Terry, Scotty, Thomas, Dan, good to see you. Emuela, if I pronounced it right, and Veronica and Chrissy, and how you doing? And I'm glad everybody's here. And it's good. It's nice to have a core group. And it's nicer when more people come, and I'm sure they will eventually. Wow, been a busy week for me. I want to address something that right at the get-go that is bothering some people. There's Devorah, how are you? One of the basic principles of God's creation is that when you have something created, he created something, and it exists, there's something opposite it that exists also. It's just a basics of creation. We call it this against this. We've talked about it a couple of times. And what's happening today, and it's a little scary for people because some people have never been through it and some people have never paid attention to it. But as one thing gets more, the opposite of it's going to get more also. That's the way it works. There's nothing in God's creation that is not a balanced thing. One of the things we're seeing in the world today, and you guys will discuss it in the pre-show show, is the rise of all these weird thoughts and people thinking that they can decide who they are, what they are, all this kind of stuff. The trans stuff and whatever. People think that they are God and they can change something by thinking about it. These same people, I'd like them to take a bunch of pennies and put it on a table and decide that they're all $100 bills and see what happens. And we know that's not going to happen. God creates, and everything he creates has a balance to it. The whole earth has a balance to it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful balance. And I've said this before. When you sit down to enjoy a good steak or whatever it is you like to eat, you're eating that thing, you're tasting it, and it's delicious, and it exists there on the table. But what you're actually eating comes from God himself. And everything you put in your mouth that's on that plate started out in the same exact way in creation. All the plants that we have, they start off as seedlings. The energy, God's energy for them to grow comes from the sun. He created the sun to heat the planet and to grow things. And a plant, a tree, whatever, grabs that sunlight, which we can't do, and it turns it into something physical, which is grass or a peach or an orange or whatever. And then we eat it, the fruits anyway, and the vegetables we eat. We're actually eating power that God has said to us from him in his creation of the sun to the whatever it is you're eating. For instance, a steak starts out as this power that comes from the sun. Grass grabs it, does its thing, the osmosis, it grows. A cattle come and eat it. Cattle take it and turn it into flesh. Now, this is the same exact thing that happens in every single thing we eat. And this power that he gives us, animals eat, the cows eat the grass. They've already elevated the grass from this plant and this power to their level of creation, which is higher up than the plant life. Then we eat it, the cow, and we've elevated it again. Now, what's happened to that power that God put in, sent down to earth from the sun? That power got converted to grass. So the grass elevated one level, the power. Then the cow comes along and eats the grass. He elevates it to a higher level because he's a higher form of life than the vegetables, the plants. Then we go and eat the meat. We're taking that same energy that came from the sun. It becomes part of us. And it's our job to elevate it further up. In other words, we turn it into something that is holy. What is that? Dedicated to God, to be used by us. We can choose. Am I going to use it to go punch somebody in the nose? Or am I going to use it to go help somebody and make them a better person? Which also makes me a better person. This is the raw essence of God's creation. And there isn't anything alive that doesn't use the same raw essence of God's creation. What we do with it is up to us. Only human beings can do that. Angels can't do it because they don't eat. We're at the highest level of creation. And when we take that energy and we eat that, and I don't care what it is you're eating, you eat a donut, it's the same thing. That donut comes from the same place that the piece of meat came from the sunlight, from the water, from it being elevated up the food, up the level back towards God. To understand, it starts with God, it comes down through the sunlight, down to the grass. It's now at the lowest level it can possibly be in creation. There is no place below our earth that we walk on. That's the lowest level of creation. We're here to lift it back up to God again. That energy, that force that he is the essence of God. That's what keeps us alive. So everybody on the planet gets to eat it. And what they do with it is up to them. And what happens? Some people think, wow, I can do whatever I want with it. So I'm going to say that my three-legged dog can go run in the Breeders' Cup. Boy, that power. I'm going to believe it. It's going to happen. I mean, come on. Every single human being has the same opportunity to take everything he does, the energy he or she gets from God, and hold it up to him and say, here, I'm raising it back up to you because I want to connect with you. That's your connection. The essence is the thing. It's like when you plug in your TV or your computer or your iPhone or whatever kind of phone you have into a wall socket. That electricity recharges it. What you do with that thing that's been recharged with electricity is up to you. What you're going to watch on your computer screen is up to you. What you're going to talk about on your phone is up to you. Everything's up to you. But you couldn't do it without having that force, that electricity, that if it hadn't been generated at a power station at levels that if you tried to plug in your electrical appliances, it would just blow them out. And the force has been stepped down and stepped down and stepped down with transformers until it comes into your house and you have like, okay, all I gotta do is plug in the wall. People don't even think about where the electricity comes from anymore. The only time they think about it is if it stops coming in. But God's essence is the same way. Through creation, where he is, it's so powerful. If we tried to plug into it, we'd explode. We wouldn't be able. I'm using this as a figurative word, by the way. So the power has to be step down, step down, step down, get to a point where we can actually take it in and then use that energy. to do the right thing for God. How do we know what the right thing for God is? Well, he said to us, children, here is the right thing to do. I just want you to do the right thing, but I'm not going to make you do the right thing. You have to decide to do it. And this is where a lot of us get in a lot of trouble, because we decide what we think is what God's plan of creation is, or that we can change something that God created into something else. Well, there are things we can change into something else. We can take a bunch of whatever components, put it together, and have a computer. But if he hadn't created that, we couldn't have it. Everything that he created, we can use any way we want. And he gives us free passage to do it, or even to make some improvements on it. Like, let's go for fire. You know, every morning before prayer, I read the sacrifice of Isaac. And it says in there that he picks up his fire pot and his machete or hatchet to go with Isaac up on Mount Zion, Mount Moriah it's called there. And Isaac, of course, carried the wood. But we've come a long way from carrying fire in a pot. We found ways to carry fire in different ways. Everything he gives us, we can change to make it easier for us to use, more convenient for us to use. He wants us to do it. But the energy that you get inside of you, that he gives you when you wake up every morning, when you eat something to revitalize yourself, you're recharging your battery just like you recharge your phone or anything else you plug into the wall. And you're harnessing God's power, and you can do with it. He says, here's the power, do what you want. Here's what I want you to do, but I'm not going to force you to do it. All of you, I'm preaching to the choir because all of you know about all this, but hopefully somebody will be listening on the YouTube that hasn't thought about this in this way. But every time you move your hand, every time you open your eyes, every time you take an action, you have a choice to elevate what you're doing back towards God or not. If you're not elevating it back towards God, you're missing the mark. You're just not doing it right. Now, you don't have to be so learned that you write books that's hard to other people to understand. You don't have to try to tell everybody how great you are and how spiritual you are because you're connected better to God. You just have to act in a way that they see and feel that you're different. Everybody does something to do that so that people can see. And when you walk away from people, especially new people you meet, you always have an impression of them. Sometimes you go away shaking your head. And sometimes you go away saying, check, I got to get to know this person better. You have a choice. And this is what we're trying to let people know. You know, a real important point to remember here is, if you're so busy doing things for God all day long, and when I say doing things for God, I don't mean you're going out doing charity work and knocking on doors and talking to people. You're raising a family, the next generation. You're making a living. But all of it, you keep connected to the God of Israel, to the Creator. He's our Father, He's our King. And you before you do something, you say to yourself, and I've said this a whole lot of times, is this what my Father would want me to do? When you feel yourself getting angry at somebody or upset or jealous or something like that, before you do anything, say, oh, is this what my Father would want me to do? And of course the answer is no. So what comes out in the end is the proper thing, what God wants. The more you do that, the more you start thinking like God, and he starts thinking like you. In other words, you come together. It's hard, but it's not hard. The hardest thing in the world for people to do is know that they're not God. God has hidden himself. My wife, when she does some of the kids' teaching, she teaches the kids God plays hide and seek. And he's hidden himself, and he's expecting you to come look for him. And what happens, she asks the kids, what happens when you play hide and seek and you hide in a place so well that everybody gives up and walks away and you're left hiding? Well, this is the way God feels a lot of times with individuals, that they just stop looking for him, forget he's there, and go on about with their business. Not what God wants, but with their business. We have to understand, and you guys know it. I know I hate preaching to the choir, but there are people out here that have to know this, that this is the whole point of everything. God made us his partners in creation, but we're not partners in creating, but we're partners in the creation. He left things here not totally done that we have to do. Bring people together, be kind to people, raise up our kids. This is all part of the creation. And he left those jobs open for us. You know, everything, a tree, an apple tree, a cow, a coyote, whatever animal exists, they don't have any part. They exist in the creation, but they have no part in doing anything other than fulfilling their purpose. They can't even think about it. So when you're talking to somebody, and this is always good to remember. You know, I used to talk in a different manner to people. In other words, I was more caustic. I talked in a hellfire brimstone type way. That's the only way I know how to put it. And I realized people will either totally grab on and then have this feeling that this is something they have to do, and if not, they're going to be punished. And other people say, I don't have to think your way, I can think some other way. And I was essentially, at that point in time, I mean, I've been teaching for 22 years now, that I was teaching, and some rabbis do it. You guys have heard some of the rabbis over the internet that teach that way. But I realized at a point that this isn't what God wants from me. Right? He wants from somebody else I can't address. But for me and from Shira, he wants us to address this thing with, take all the negatives out and just talk positive. And because of that, we don't debate with people anymore. We just listen. We give information. If somebody wants to say something or criticize, it's up to them. It's okay. They can do it. So the point I'm making from all this is God feeds us his essence through what we eat every day, from the sunlight that shines down on us, to the steak on the table, or anything else, even the pictures. You know, a good example is the tapestry that Scotty has behind him, or Terry has that picture behind him. That was at Noah's Ark, right? Okay. These are perfect examples of what man can do. Take the things that God created and arrange them in a way that's pleasing to the eye. Go ahead, Terry.
I think this comes from Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was, I think, before the king or emperor, however you want to put it. He was asked a question. I can't remember the exact question, but it has the deal. Something like, is man better, or is a you're probably remembering what I'm trying to bring about. Something about is man better, or is I want to say God, but I know it's not that. But the essence was that when Rabbi Akiva came back, he said man was, because God made a grain stalk, and man took the grain stalk and made cakes. You remember what I'm saying? Remember that story?
Yeah, I don't remember the question.
It's Rabbi Akiva. Chrissy's shaking her head. Can you relate that story? Because I can't remember it exactly, but I believe it was Rabbi Akiva.
I'm a bit hazy on it too, but I remember it goes through the whole story of the seed, and then all the processes that goes through, and at each stage, I think it's a higher elevation. And is that?
Yeah, and man takes the stock, the grain, and it makes it even higher.
The flour makes the flour, and then someone takes the flour and makes the bread, and then the breads, and so it's a continual creation.
Right. Yeah, and because the grain by itself, is not useful until it's made into something different. And it's a story with Rabbi Akiva. I'm pretty sure it was Rabbi Akiva.
I think you're right.
I remember the story, but I can't remember to quote it to you. But it's essentially.
It's what you're saying is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It's essentially the same thing as what I'm saying here. That God creates all the parts. We've got to put them together.
Exactly.
And He's given us a head to do that. He's given us a sechel. He's given us intellect. He's given us our brain. We can do it in any way we want. Like Shira makes challah for us every Friday. 1 week she'll make it out of spelt, 1 week out of wheat flour, the whole wheat, 1 week out of regular wheat. It's her choice. But what do we do with the bread in the end? We raise it up by putting it on our Shabbat table and blessing it and honoring God by eating that bread. So what we do with it is important. What He wants us to do with it, not what we decide to do with it, is what's important. And He tells us essentially about everything. And it's kind of, Shira and I were discussing this the other night. And I said, this whole thing actually, God created us and gave us a whole bunch of DIY stuff, do-it-yourself stuff. And, you go into people's home. A lot of people here in Israel, and they use IKEA. I don't know if they have it where you guys are, but it's you go and buy the package and you take it home, you put it together. And sometimes you go to somebody's house and they've got some kind of shelf arranged or something. It's from IKEA, and you got one like it. He said, wow, I didn't know you could put it together like that. And they looked at me and said, what, you didn't read the instructions? And I said, what a good idea. And you end up with an extra shelf that way. And I said, oh, you didn't read the instructions, huh? That's what life's all about. We can have good, pleasant, wonderful lives, or we can get as much angst and worry and everything else into our lives that we want. It's up to us. I have a very close friend who has had a very tough life. He was born in Czechia. I guess it used to be called Czechoslovakia. And he grew up there as a Jew. He was in jail for 5 years because he was Jewish there. And then he managed to get to Canada. He's survived cancer twice. He's raised 3 daughters by himself, even having cancer and everything. And he finally made Aliyah. He came to live here, and he's down the street neighbor. Really nice, sweet guy. But every time I talk to him, he brings up things that happened years ago, and he's still worried about certain things. He's not getting any joy out of life. And when he gets really down, he comes and we sit and talk. And I said to him once, I said, you know, you got to remember that you're not in charge here. So you don't have to worry about it. You just do what you're supposed to do, and God takes care of the rest. God is your pilot. You're the co-pilot. You're not the pilot. He says to me, I've had 3 different rabbis tell me that in my life. And I still have to say it to him at least once a week. He just doesn't accept. He doesn't let go. He enjoys hanging on to these things, I guess. Now, he's been, like I said, he's been through some tough times. He's 2-time cancer survivor. When he was in jail in Hungary, in Czechoslovakia, because he was a Jew, because of the conditions there and because of the things, he lost most of his hearing. And he doesn't like wearing hearing aids. So he likes to keep, I said to him, why don't you do it? Why do I have to sit and talk into your ear? And he says, because when I put those in, I hear all these other noises that distract me. He says, I like the way it is. But yet he just, if you go up to him on the street and ask him to do something, I don't care what it is, stand on his hands. I'm being a little dramatic in what I'm saying. He'll say, okay, and I'll just do it. He will never tell anybody no, or I can't, or I'm too sick to do it, or whatever. The point I'm making is he takes everything and he's decided this is the way it's going to be. He's decided this is the way his life's going to be. Every one of us can decide the way we want our life to be. I used to think it was all me. Boy, look at what I'm doing. Look how much money I'm making. Look at all the new cars I got. Look at my boat. Look at my house. Look at this. I did this. Biggest mistake of my life. Now, I can't say I wasted the time living that way because it brought me to who I am today. And so we can't keep looking back and saying, I wish I didn't do this. I wish I had found this earlier. I wish I did, to that. Wish I hadn't done that. That's no way to live life with constant regret. God takes however you've lived your life up to the point that you turn around and embrace him directly. He takes what you've done and says, okay, because it brought you to me, then okay, it's all fine. It's all good. Now, David says to forget what he did in his youth. And it's in Proverbs that God is supposed to forget what we did in our young days when we were just so full of life and learning how to use life, that it was just an amazing thing. So did we lose? Oh no, there's Scotty. I thought we lost him. So anyway, what we're trying to do with people, all of you, look, the people I see here in front of me, you're all people that want to get the message to other people. You want to make their lives better. And by making your own life better and showing them how to do it, they can make their own lives better. And wherever anybody is okay with God as long as they stop and turn around and come to him. You know, unfortunately, we grow up with this mentality that I did something and I'm going to be punished for it. God's not a punisher. He's a lover. He loves us all. And he wants us all to be with him. He just says, okay, you want to be with me? There's a certain deportment I want you to have. A certain way that I want you to act. You have to acknowledge who I am, and you have to fulfill these basic requirements. Very basic. Anybody can fulfill them. They're so easy that even a person that is born with a thinking, not being able to think the way everybody else does, let's put it that way, because it's not a disability. They were born that way, so God must have wanted it that way. But what comes to my mind, I was just thinking, is children with Down syndrome, people with Asperger's, people with all these different things, but they still could get the same exact value out of life that you and I get. All they have to do is connect with God and live a simple, they don't have to go, they can't do the learning, so they don't have to do the learning. They just go about their business of living their life and enjoying it. And that's what we're supposed to do. And we have to help other people do the same thing. When you see people working so hard, they haven't got a minute to turn around because they got to feed the family and pay the bills and do everything else. That's okay, they can do that. As long as they do it in a way that raises up their energy of what they're doing to God again. Not they don't hurt anybody, they don't yell at anybody, they don't steal from anybody, they don't do any of the things that drag it down. So having said that, we started out by saying people think they can think what they want and it's okay. And today across the world, it's growing and growing and growing. Some people think they're horses, people think they're cats, some people think they're the opposite sex. Things like this. They can think it all they want, it doesn't change anything. The problem is when other people accept the way they think. Oh yes, you're a good horse, you can be a horse. That's a problem. Go ahead, Terry.
I've had quite a bit on my mind lately that disturbs me. I know that we as Noahides, we begin changing the world by changing ourselves. And I know that I have a ton of work to do on myself in some areas. I don't set the best example. I still a little bit, I don't have the flash anger like you have. I have a flash frustration when I see things that's not operated according to the 7 laws that are practical upon every human being, whether they've read a Bible or not. And I was listening to a commercial. Well, I wasn't listening to it. I've heard the commercial several times a day on the radio of about a factory down in North Georgia advertising, it's a carpet mill and they're advertising, they're hiring. And they give the whole gamut list, we're, basically not prejudiced against, religious sex, and they're going all the way, and they even list transgender. And so as I've pondered some of this stuff, what has occurred to me in my thoughts as far as our nation, the United States, and why we're becoming where we're at today is we are a rights-driven society and not a ethical and moral-driven society. And it's like the rudder is stuck. I mean, it's really frustrating me. How do we unstick this thing, get this ship going back toward ethics and morality, where we used to be, in the 40s and 50s. Still wasn't right, but it was better than where we're at today. And, especially with ethics and morals. And it's just been, and I got to thinking, I listened to that commercial, oh, it's okay if you're transgender and all that. Well, if you have a right to do that, then who's going to step up next and say, I have a right to steal, I have a right to murder, I have a right to be a pedophile, I have a right to do this. Everybody has a right to be what they want. But the problem is when you tell them you got to operate by ethics and morals, that gets into their rights, because there are no rights. With ethics and morality, there's a responsibility, not rights. And that's something I don't know. It's really been something on my mind a lot lately. And, as Noahides, we're so small, how do we push against this rudder where our society is taking our nation and try to bring it back around? I don't know. I don't have the answer for that, but it just disturbs me.
Okay, Christy, I'm going to give you the microphone in just a second, but I need to answer this while it's in my head. I don't want to lose this. If you take what you're looking at in the history of the United States of America, or Australia, or France, or any other country, pull it in and equate it like to your life. In your life, you did a lot of things that You now look back on it and say, they weren't right. They weren't, but it was part of the path, part of the journey that I had to make to get where I am today. What's happening with people around the world in many places, just like you just talked about right now, these factories that put all these things up and everybody's allowed to be whatever they want to be, transgender or cat, dog, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. And people recognizing someone's right to think what they want, which is perfectly fine. People make it, God allows it even. So I'm not going to stop people from thinking what they want. And I can't even get upset with them because God allows them to do it. But when you look at the frustration of what's happening to the country, if you look at your life, I look at my life, and sometimes I sit and I'm a little bit, I don't want to say depressed, but frustrated about some of the things I did and some things I went through. How could I have thought that? How could I have gone through that? How could I have been that kind of person? And then I go look in the mirror and say, but this is what made me who I am today. This is what gave me my connection. So we're looking at something that's happening that's in the middle of what's happening. We haven't walked through a door that shows us the ending. We know what it is. We haven't seen it yet. And we think that everything that's happening is something that's holding us back from that end goal. But it's not. It's what's making the world ready to be what God wants it to be, just like you went through everything and you had to go through all that to get where God wanted you to be right now, right here, talking to us together with the thoughts we have in our minds. So if you look at it, that it's a growth thing, it's going to happen. It's like you said about the grain that Rabbi Akiva was talking about. Hello, Martha. The grain that Rabbi Akiva talked about. To grow into that stalk, what happened underground in the dirt? The seed got pushed in a pile of dirt. The seed could be saying to itself, what am I doing down here buried under this dirt? Then somebody dumps a bunch of water on it. Then the outside shell disintegrates and dies. And then the seedling itself has to push up through that dirt to spread its leaves under God's light, under the sun. Well, but this is what humanity is doing right now. Once we push up through and hit God's light, which is the next level of existence for us, we'll look back at it and say, whoa, that was terrible. Why did I have to go through that? But you had to go through it to get to where you are. And with society, it's the same exact thing. Society is just people. So it's a whole bunch of people, individuals, going through the same thing at the same time. Some people are more ahead of other people. That's always going to be that way. But once we get into the next level of life, we're all going to be equal as far as where we are. From there on, the only thing we're going to do from that point on, once we get out under God's open essence and light, he says there's no darkness there. I haven't figured that one out yet. When do you sleep? If there's no darkness. But I'll find out when I get there. But the point is, all of us will be spreading our arms in front of God, and he's going to be giving us the vitality we need. And all we're going to be thinking about, and all we'll have to think about, is how we're going to learn to think more like him and be more like him and be closer to him. That's eternity. We can never get to the final step, but we can sure work on it and enjoy it while we're doing it. So I know that it bothers people, and I read opinion articles about it all the time, and people talk to me about it all the time. But the point is, there are steps we have to go through to get to the end point. Look, you say, how can we do it such a little group? Where did Abraham pitch his tent? And how many people were with him? Think about where we've come from. One guy with his wife serving meals to anybody that walked by. One guy going against the whole world. And we're the result of it. That decision he made 4,000 years ago. the world and people have been going through a process since then. Before, Abraham was what, the 22nd generation from the creation, something like that. There was 10 to the flood, and then 10 to, maybe it was the 20th generation. But look what mankind went through to get to the point that it could even produce a guy like Abraham. Someone that God could work with. Mankind brought Abraham into being by what they were before then. If there hadn't been a flood, if there hadn't been a Noah, there'd be no Abraham. So, and Abraham had Isaac. And Abraham had offspring that were not following the line. Then we have Isaac. He didn't, all of his offspring didn't follow the line. Finally, Jacob comes along, and that particular line, he get 12 out of 12. He did good. He kept the guys together. But out of the whole world, how many people went down to Egypt? 70 people, plus Joseph. It says 70 people. They've changed the world, those 70 people, or 71 people. That's what we're doing now. But it started with one guy and his wife who decided to give some people some free food by the side of the road. So we're not so little. We're not powerless. Our power is flowing throughout the world now. I talked to a guy, a writer for a newspaper the other day. He says, well, you guys, you should have been teaching us all along. And I said, should we? You guys are the ones that put up the roadblocks. And they did. We have, the Jews, everybody's like, yeah, if you guys had been teaching us all along, the world wouldn't be in the mess it's in. And I said, well, the world wouldn't be in the mess it's in if you'd let us live to teach. So it's just a process we had to go through. Now, nobody has to hate anybody for it. Nobody has to point fingers. And nobody has to blame anybody else. This is the process that God wanted to happen, like that seed that he planted, mankind, covered it with dirt, and I'm talking about all of mankind. That includes every single human being. Poured water on us. We pushed out of the seed part. It just fell away. And then we started reaching up towards him, broke through the dirt, and we're out under his sunlight right now, getting what we can from this level of his creation. To get to the next level of creation, we have to do the work. Just like the wheat gets grown by God, and then somebody makes flour out of it, and somebody bakes challah or bread. Process is no different. The process is all the same. So when we remember that, and when I see things happening all over the world, and I read the stuff like what's going on in the United States right now, it's a hate thing going on. There's a group of people that are hating other people because of what they think. That has nothing to do with religion. And when I look at that, I just shake my head and say, how can this happen? And then I realize, how can people, if we look at it, you say, logically, how can they get like this? Trump just assassinated the #1 terrorist in the world, and people were mourning him, the terrorist, and people were still writing editorials about what a bad thing Trump did. And the Democrats in the Senate now are trying to limit his powers to act that way. And I think to myself, how can somebody be so dumb as not to realize what's going on? Why can't they see the picture? Because you know why they don't see it? Because they don't want to see it. They're focused on something else. They're saying a mantra that things have to be this way and they have to be this way, and only our way. Hey, religions do the same thing. Okay. Let me just quickly I haven't looked at the chat at all. If everything is a right, there is no rights. You're absolutely right. God gives us, and I don't know if it's a right or what you would call it, He gives us the ability to choose whatever we want. So I guess you could call it a right.
It's more of a free will than a right.
Yeah, the right is what God wants us to do. He gives us a free will to choose what to do. All is evil versus good, and that is true. But the more good you have, the more evil you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is. It's just like the more food you buy, the more money you got to put on the scale. Everything has to be even.
And Chrissy had something too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chrissy. Go ahead.
I was just saying that, thinking, everyone has impulses, you know. They have this impulse to do this or to do that. And along with that impulse, they believe they have this entitlement. Like we're looking at the third generation of people who, I'm entitled to this. It's my right. Never mind about how it crosses over and affects them within their family or society or whatever. It's I think Pesach said it beautifully when you said they've made themselves into God. So I'm what matters, and everyone must cater to my needs. That was all I was just, we see this. Look, if I go to the supermarket in the big shopping centre, I really feel I should take a happy pill before I go, because after I've left and come home, I get in the car, and I think, oh, hey, thank you, Chef. It is, people see you walking along and they don't even get out of the way. I mean, you're the sidestepping everyone. They're all on a mission. They're all on an impulse. Just common courtesies of standing and letting someone go past first. It's just not in their makeup anymore.
Yeah, that's true. People think that they have the right to step on other people. They don't think about it. You're right. You should take a happy pill. From where you are to go to one of these big population centers probably takes you a little while. How long? An hour, 2 hours?
It takes me, an hour, because we've got a gravel road and stuff. We live in the country.
I know,
and it's a big day. I mean, we don't go down to the shop every day. But, I come home and I think, I've had a culture shock, and it's hard to put it into words. It's hard to understand that this, am I mad, or is that how society is? Am my expectations too high? But I see some women and men, women dressed in, I can tell you what, there's people that wear more when they take a shower, and they're going into the supermarkets, and they're, we have a saying in Australia, there's some people out there with more tattoos than brain cells, so.
Yeah, no, that's right. When I know that I have to leave my area here in Sfat and go down into like Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or something, I prepare myself. While I'm on my ride, I turn the radio off and I do some praying, and I use that time to talk to God. And I always end up where I need to go with a big smile on my face, even if there's big traffic jams.
There's your happy pill.
There's the happy pill.
I think Dan raised his hand.
Did I see Dan raise his hand, or was he saying goodbye? I wasn't sure.
No, I was raising my hand. I just wanted to comment.
Go ahead.
Just to continue where Chrissy was talking, and along the lines of what Pesach is saying, we live in this generation that since the late 50s, it's this simple. Economics has been driven by something called rational choice theory economics. If you go to any higher education school where they teach about economics and how to drive the economy. They teach rational choice theory economics. And understand, they're the ones defining what the term rational means and also how to force their products on the public. And so they use, it was designed by a think tank from the Rand Group, and the think tank designed this methodology that in order for people to be rational, they will want more. If you offer them more or cheaper or better, they will, go for it. So the whole of economics has been driven by this for 60 plus years, and it got heated up in the 70s and into the 80s, and punch phrases started to come out. But it was all being taught out of, the graduates out of every university that taught economics, people put into these high positions to run companies, to move products, were pumping this drumbeat of rational choice theory economics. And when people understand what it's designed to do, what it does is it actually changes our mind frame from citizens with rights and responsibilities, okay? We have rights and responsibilities to those rights. It changes us from citizens with rights and responsibilities to consumers. And you're left with nothing but a generation today that are consumers. And Chrissy was talking about people that just are rushed in a hurry to go through the grocery store, go here, go there. We see it here on what's called Black Friday, when the Walmart doors open or the local electronics store, and they're pushing each other over, waiting in line, and they're functioning like animals, which Pesach has been talking about is the opposite of how we're supposed to raise. And when we understand the simplicity behind, yes, rational choice theory, economic math is complicated, but at the bottom line, all it does is drive us to want more, better. And you're irrational if you don't want more. If you have a degree of contentment, according to rational choice theory economics, there's something wrong with you. And this is why you have this generation that acts derogatory. They think there's something wrong with you if you don't want more or better. That's all they've ever known, is this drumbeat of rational choice theory economics. But when you understand the simplicity of it, and you see how Torah is the injected cure. Especially I love the way you guys have really put forth this class in a simple fashion, and Peshek's message on that just really levels that out. And if people just step back and say, oh, I'm not going to be a fish on a hook running to the drumbeat of rational choice theory economics, but function as elevating things to Hashem, especially when we eat, and understanding how that works. It's very, very plain, and it's dynamic. And so I want to thank you guys. It's been a great class.
Good. Thank you very much. And thank you for explaining about the rational
choice theory economics. You can look it up. And Hebrew people are really strong on free will and choice, but when you look up rational choice theory economics, they've defined what is rational, rather than having a Torah balance of what is rational. And it's what drums the economy. And so it's a dollar-driven society. And as a lot of people will tell you that that money is the root of all evil, but even King Solomon, his wisdom, knew how it was able to solve a lot of problems. So putting it in perspective, I love how you guys just focus on elevating the world in the way that you can. You're doing wonderful things. It's beautiful. It solves the problem.
Thank you very much. We're just simply walking the road that Hashem has put down for human beings since Adam was created. And if you think of human beings as a unit, as a one, all of us we're just one, just on that simple level. Human beings have been going through stages of growth, just like a person does after the person comes out of the womb. It goes through an infancy, it goes through its toddler, it has stages. And if you go study about how children grow up, this is the terrible twos, and this is this, and this is that, and they become teenagers. Oh my goodness, what everybody goes through, But if you think of human beings collectively going through that same process, all of us together, all of humanity going through that same process, and we get bad habits, and it covers most of the world, and that goes away because along comes somebody else with some other habits. Let's call them different empires, different countries, doesn't make any difference. And along comes somebody else with some other habits and forces them on people. But we're always going to, where is the world today? Look at human beings. The majority of human beings on this planet, I don't know how many people are on the planet. I shouldn't have said that. Over 3 billion people, huh?
About 7 billion.
Okay, well, there's about 3 billion that believe in monotheism. That's a lot of people. The Muslims are monotheistic 100%. They only pray to one God, not the right one, but they pray to one God. Catholics and Protestants believe that they pray to the one God. But the paganism has essentially left the world because man has grown out of paganism. Paganism, the human sacrifices, and that human beings have moved past, well, you're my wife and you're my kids, you're my property, so if I want to throw you into a fire pit to appease my God, I'm going to do it. We've gone from people or other people's possessions to everybody has their own right to do what they want, and it's a natural growth pattern. It's a learning process for all of humanity. And each country that comes along, or each empire, each power, takes humanity a little bit closer to the next level where we need to be. And now I'm going to throw in some of my Torah learning. The accounted time is supposed to be 7,000 years, just like there's 7 days in a week. And the 6,000 are divided into 3 separate areas, which I'm not going to go into right now. But we're, according to, time was started at the creation of Adam, not the creation of everything else. The minute Adam was created, the clock started ticking. That was 5,780 years ago. So it's approximately 220 years to the year 6,000. In the year, what happens at the end of the 6th day of the week for Jews? Shabbos comes in. We reach a level we're higher up with God. We understand from all the teachings that God has given us in Torah, when we hit that year 6,000, that's when we're going to start feeling the presence of the Messiah. And it's going to take mankind another 1,000 years to go up finally to the last level of life. It's not going to happen ding, 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 ding. The Messiah is going to be present. People are going to start recognizing who he is. Some people are going to accept his teachings and some are not. And it's going to be a growth pattern again. You know, God tells us the time is going to come where every nation is going to have to come up to Jerusalem once a year. That's on the Sukkot, and stand before him. And anybody that doesn't, he's not going to give that nation rain. That's a very clear thing that he's telling this everybody. In the end, everybody's going to look at me and accept, or you're going to die. I don't want you around. He says, I'm going to treat you like I did with Egypt, and I'm going to give you drought. What does drought bring? Death. So up until the very end, everybody has the choice of what to do. Either be with him or not be with him. He's the creator. We're a part of him, and he wants everybody, even if you decide not to, and you go off this, when you die, your soul is going to go back to him, whether you go or not. When he puts you into a body, which is just dust that you can use for 40, 70, 80, 120 years, the soul that is in there, that's you in there, connected to him. Now, I'm not talking about the animal soul. I'm talking about the godly part of you. it returns to him. My question is, and I haven't seen yet exactly in my studies, I haven't got it quite clear in my head yet. When your body goes in the ground, it's dead. It's worm food, as David says. But that soul, the godly soul, goes back to him. But that's you. That's your identity. That's Chrissy, and that's Thomas, and it's every one of us. I'm in that soul. That soul has become me, and I've become that soul. Now, when that soul goes back up there, does it carry me with it? Or does it go up as a clean slate, like I never existed? That, to me, seems to be the only choice we have. When my soul, who I am today, when this body is put in the dirt, is it going to make its way back to God? And I'm going to be with him until the time comes when the resurrection of the dead happens and I get my new body. I don't know what kind, I don't know what shape, I don't know what it's going to look like. It'll probably be, my opinion now, and I've read some rabbis about this, so I've got this opinion from them. We're going to look like we do today. Because so we can recognize people. But the bodies are not going to be the same that we have today. The animal body that we have today is the whole reason, and we have free choices, the reason we have jealousy and anger and hurt and everything else, competition. Once we go to the next level of life, it's not the same type of body. It's not going to demand those things from us. We're free to learn. We're free to continue our moving up. It's like Terry gave a good example in his interview about the trees. But once we get up there, we'll be doing nothing but flowering and growing taller and getting more information from God. That's the point we're going to be at when we get to the other side. It's just what we're going through. Don't let it frustrate you. Don't let, when you see all these terrible things happening in the world, and I've had people tell me, oh, the world is so bad, it's the worst it's ever been. So how do you know it's the worst it's ever been? This is the way it is today. Well, people back in the days with the knights, and they were chivalrous, and they were this. I said, hold on a minute. People are right where they're supposed to be because God is growing us up, just like any parent. And we're going through different stages. And if you keep that firmly in your mind, that when you see all these terrible, disgusting things and listen to all these people say all these things, you can say, well, that's people being people. Now, how do I get to this conclusion? You all have people in your lives that aggravate you, and you can't deny it, that you would rather they weren't in your lives. Can't deny it. You're holding some grudges here and there about people. This is who human being is. But I learned something through what I've learned through Torah, is if I say to myself, that's just Jack being Jack, that's who he is. I shouldn't have to get upset about it. That's just who he is. He talks that way. He's nasty that way. Okay, so that's who he is. Why should I get upset about it? That's his problem, not my problem. You have an older brother that treats you poorly. You got it. Your father's doesn't treat you. He hurt your feelings. I grew up with a father that was tough to grow up with, but that was my fault, not his, because I wasn't understanding. And today I have the understanding, but he's not around to tell him I know. Hopefully he hears it. But sometimes Shira used to get upset at one of her sisters for one thing or another thing. I said, look, just remember something. This is your sister being who she is. That's who this person is. You just accept it. Hopefully they'll expand in the way they are, but don't get angry at it. That's just who the person is. They're God's creation. They're a part of God just like you are. And you are who God made you to be. They're who God made them to be. And they can grow or not grow. But each person, wherever they are, we don't have the right to judge them, be angry at them. We just have to say, this is this person. This is Ed being Ed. This is Janice being Janice, whatever. And we shouldn't take offense at it. This is just who the person is. Just like you accept people in your life on the loving side, but you love them because of who they are. So we just have to accept everybody the same way and realize each one of us that we're here together, we're all one. We're not separate individuals. Like now it looks like it. But every one of us has that godly part of us in it. It comes from our Father, it comes from God. We're all connected together. There isn't anybody on this planet alive or dead that wasn't or isn't connected to God. Whether they were a bad person or a good person. Whether they were Mother Teresa or, may his name be wiped out, Hitler. We're all the same. We're human beings and we're part of God. We're one. And when you treat somebody bad, you're treating God bad. You're treating a part of yourself bad. You may be the head and somebody else is a finger, and if you treat that finger bad, what, are you going to go smack your own finger with a hammer? That person is a part of us, no matter what they think or say. Even the biggest anti-Semites in the world, we're part of the same thing, humanity. The biggest haters in the world, the people that want to talk the nastiest to everybody. That's who they are. And we have to accept them as who they are, just the way other people accept us as who we are. And I know some people just push people's buttons all the time. Those of you, this is the way I look at marriage. Man and woman come together and they become one unit, one. And each of you have your own personality traits, your own this, your own that. You just accept it. That's the only way a marriage works. And that's what God wants us to learn. What is one of the most important things in the prayers that God wants us to have? What if we don't have it? Listen now. Every morning I read it. These are the things that God wants you to do here on this earth, and these are the things that send rays through to the next level of life. The last three things you read are peace in the house, shalom bayit, between husband and wife, ish ve'ishto. It's one of the highest levels you can reach with God. Peace in the house, husband and wife. And if you think to yourself, why would this be so high? He wants peace in the house, shalom bayit. Where are we living, guys? In his house. We're supposed to be prepared it. We're building the house for him to move into. And he wants nothing more than peace. So we're supposed to learn it on a practical level in our own homes, in our own four walls, so that we can expand it to the whole earth. This peace. God, he says, I want to come and be with you. He doesn't say, I want you to come be with me. He says, I want to come be with you. That's the whole reason the earth exists. That's why there's going to be the Bet HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. But he wants peace. He wants shalom bayit, peace in the house. Boy, you see these T-shirts, if mama ain't happy, nobody is. And stuff like that. It's true. If you don't have peace in the house, nobody has peace. The kids leave angry when they go to school. The husband leaves angry. The wife leaves angry. And it affects everything throughout their day and how they treat other people. But if there's peace and harmony inside the home, when you leave the house, you carry it with you. And nobody can take it away from you. And that's what we're learning to do And this is part of the key teachings of Torah. I say this all the time. Bottom line with Torah is real simple. All of Torah sums up in this sentence: do not do to others what you don't want them to do to you. Very negative. Everything's do not do. But that's the way God is. What are 7 Noahide laws? Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. What are all the commandments that the Jews have? Most of them are negative commandments. If you stop and think, would I want somebody to do this to me? I guess I'm not going to do it to anybody else. You know what a victory that is for God? You've learned what he's trying to teach. That's the simple bottom line. But we make it so complicated, it's hard to get there. This guy cut me off, I'm going to cut him off. This guy cut me off, got me angry, I'm going to shoot him in the head. Expand that from road rage to every part of life. This guy, when I was in high school with him, he put me down. So he's got this business over here, and I got the same business over there. I'm going to put him out of business. Whatever. God wants peace in his house. We're responsible for that. But it starts with peace in your house. Peace in the home. You know, when Moses came down off of Mount Sinai, we're going to be getting into that in our Torah readings here shortly. The instructions that God gave him was, go tell this to the house of Jacob and to Bnei Yisrael. Now, everybody says Bnei Yisrael means the children of Israel, but it doesn't always mean that. Bnei means sons of also. So God gave Moses a very specific instruction. Teach the elders, go to the house of Jacob. Guess who they are? It's all the women. They're the ones that make the house. They're the ones that we are supposed to build the house for, but they're the ones that make the house into a home. Not us guys, the women. And so he said to Moses, talk to the women first. Go to the elders, actually, and then tell the women first, then go to the men and tell them. The women first, and then to the men and tell them. When you go through Torah, you'll find that women are very instrumental in a lot of things. But God set up a patriarchal society, so we read basically about the guys and what they did. And I guess we make more mistakes than the women do, so we're the example of the mistakes to make too, because we're so egocentric and I'm a macho man. The whole point I'm trying to get across, and I'm doing a whole lot of wind about it, is the simple fact is that God just wants us to raise up everything to him and prepare the house for him. Blessings, Dan. So this is what we got to do. Anybody want to say anything? Go ahead. Okay, Scotty.
So you're doing pretty good till you start meddling. I got this pastor friend who has this ability to make my hair grow. I mean, just being in his presence. And so I've been working on this for a couple of years. He moved out of state, and I thought, well, Baruch Hashem, I'm not going to have to see him no more. And then all these people start posting stuff on Facebook to me about him. And so, you know, I'm saying, and so I decided a couple of years ago that I was going to just be so happy for him. Just happy. Anytime somebody starts talking to me, I'm just going to be, oh, that's great. It doesn't work real well. So, so anyway, I understand what you're saying. God, that's the way He is, and I just have to learn to accept that and stop allowing Him to dictate to me how I'm going to be happy or upset.
That's exactly right. But even though you're saying that person is who that person is, that's to take any negative feelings out of you. That doesn't mean how they are is right, or you should be happy the way they are. That you should, okay, that just accept that. You can't. This is for you internally. This is to help you with your fixing yourself inside. So when you see the person push in front of you in line, you just say, okay, that's who that person is. It doesn't have to be even somebody you particularly know. It's just helping you. It's a self-tikkun, a self-fixing. Okay, that's the way the person is. That's the way the person wants to think right now. That's okay. If they come with a question, you give them the truth. You don't tell them whatever they think is okay. If they ask you a question, you just don't agree with them just because of whatever. You must tell people the truth, but in a very gentle, loving way, the same way you explain something to your own child or your wife or your husband. When someone takes the hard road, well, this is what I think, and this is what I understand. This is what I want it to be. Understand they still haven't gotten to the point yet of being able to cancel that part of themselves. And it's a hard thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, as you all well know. Just because you think something doesn't make it right. Just because your opinion is a certain way doesn't make that opinion right. Just because you want something to be a certain way doesn't mean it's a right way it has to be. In your head it is, but let's check it against what God wants. So we are raised in a society that allows people to do that. You know, when I used to go and travel a lot, and I used to teach the Tanakh and the Chumash in churches and in home groups all over America, I used to travel, basically in the East and the Midwest. I never made it to the far West. But I would come to America and I would have meetings set up for a month where I'd travel I'd rent a car and I'd bring it back, and they said, how did you drive 6,000 to 7,000 miles in a month? I said, wait a minute, you gave me free unlimited mileage, so I did it. You know, and I'd give classes, and as soon as I'd finish a class at night, I'd get in the car and drive to the next place I had to give a class in every single day except Shabbat. My point is, I would open the Tanakh and I'd read it to people, and then I'd tell them what it means from Rashi and from Onkelos and from the other people. And they said, well, that's not what I think. I think this, and I interpret it this way, and I can do this. I just say, okay, well, you're entitled to do that. God lets you do it, so you're entitled. You know, I'll never forget, I'd done a teaching in Minnesota somewhere, way up north Minnesota. And I was in, I don't remember what denomination it was. And I was explaining to people who Jesus was in their, you know, that he wasn't a Christian. And after the lesson was over, I'll never forget this lady walking up to me, this little old lady, and saying, my Jesus was Christian. He was never Jewish. And I said, okay, if that's what you want to believe, that's fine. But I'll never forget that moment when that happened to me. That's when I realized that people can make anything any way they want. They can tell the story any way they want. Now I've gotten to the point today where without getting negative or anything, most people that live on this earth, no matter how humble, no matter who they are, they leave a footprint that someone can find, proof that they existed. I've never seen proof of the other guy, other than some stuff written in Talmud, actually. So I don't know, but it doesn't make any difference to me. But I brought it up as an example of how somebody can make anything into anything they want. And that's today in the world. They're the two big religions have made, Islam and that's a whole nother story. We'll get into that. Why Islam exists. Go ahead, Terry.
Thomas had his hand raised.
Oh, go ahead, Thomas.
I was going to say something. I'm not ready for that. But Scotty, that preacher, I want to meet him.
Okay.
Oh, and I just want to say thanks to you.
I understand.
I need someone to pay for my haircuts.
Well, I'm going to be getting one, so if you want me to, I'll email you some clippings.
Thomas, they're meddling again.
That's why.
That's why I wear the hat, so the light don't blind everybody.
Yeah. That's why God created hats. Anybody else have any other questions, any comments, anything you want to talk about?
I know when you're talking about genders earlier, Michigan is going through a thing right now to where they're going to put a third gender on IDs and driver's license. It's going to be male, female, and transgender.
Really?
Yep.
Unbelievable.
That's like that one lady said that. I don't know what she was, lesbian, LGBT, ABC, whatever. She said that there was 36 genders, and I told her no, there's male and female and 34 mental disorders.
That's true. But actually, I always reel myself in and say to myself, if God allows these people to think this way, then it's okay with him, it's okay with me. Let me tell you, there's a basic principle with God that whatever you want to believe, he'll let you believe more of it. You want to believe this over here? Go ahead. Believe all you want. I'm not going to get in your way. God doesn't want to change anybody's mind. He wants us to change our own minds. If he changes your mind, then he's done something wrong. He's forcing you into something. So,
Yeah, I had that conversation with a similar conversation to that with a missionary Baptist friend of mine, and he's a pastor and a preacher. He was telling about how, he used to be and how God changed him, and that's why he accepted the belief he's in, because this particular person changed him. And I looked at him and said, nobody changed you. I said, God didn't change you. Oh, yeah. I said, no. I said, you made every decision on your own. You might use that person as an excuse, saying, oh, they changed me. I said, no. When you quit drinking, you quit drinking. When you quit smoking, you quit smoking. You made the decision on your own. Boy, he never could grasp that he made those choices on his own. Even though he was using the other person as the excuse, he still made the choices. And
from Adam, human beings have a very strong trait. We don't want to take responsibility for anything. What did Adam say to God? Well, the woman you gave me this food.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can blame it on somebody else, then we're saying right or wrong, it doesn't make any difference. It's that person's fault anyway.
Right.
But when I meet people and they tell me the other thing, and I said, why can't they do this, or why do they have a problem with that? They said, well, it's a problem. You haven't decided to do anything yet. Well, I keep praying to God to make me more patient, praying to God to take hate away from me, praying to God to take whatever away from me. And I said, you can pray to him all you want, but he's not going to do it. You have to decide you want it done, and it's done. It's a decision. You know, when we moved up here to Sfat, and Shira was in her conversion program, and she was learning about how to be an Orthodox or Haredi Jew, a Jew that follows all of the 613 as best they can. I wasn't at that point in time. I was a Jewish guy, and I was enjoying life. I was Shomer Shabbat. It was about the only thing. I wasn't doing the halachot and everything. She says to me, you know what? We're moving up to Sfat now. Everybody up there is Haredi. How are you going to fit in? You're just going to be yourself? I said, no, when we get up there, everything will be okay. She says, how? I said, because I'm going to flip the switch. It's that easy. When we move up there, I'll fit right in. And we moved up here, and I walked into Chabad Shul, and I just started learning and started doing and just did. So here I am. I'm not a secular Jewish person. I'm following what God has said. This is what he wants the Jews to do. And I'm doing it. But it was my decision. I had to flip the switch to turn the light on to do it. Everything we do in our life is a decision we make. And Terry's absolutely 100% right about that. Oh, God did this for me, and God did that for me, and God changed me this way, and God changed me that way. And I tell people, no, you decided, just like you do, Terry. That's a very good point. When people, go ahead, Thomas.
I was going to say, when you're talking about people talking like that, my cousin, who's a Protestant preacher, he told me the one time that it was up to me to let Jesus save me. I said, well, life best can save me too, but I'm not going to worship that.
A good answer. But it's true. That's how Abraham got to what he got to. Reading his story is very interesting, how he got to his beliefs, or how he got in contact with God, actually. I shouldn't say his beliefs. But, you know, I know that my religion is good because I pray to God and he answers my prayers. Well, that's true. You can be a Hindu and worship a monkey god. God will answer your prayers because you're his child. And if you need it enough, he's going to answer your prayer. He's not going to punish you because you're doing that. Your punishment comes later by not going to the next level of life. Although I don't think it happens to very many people that this is a secret between us guys. God gives everybody that second chance, even right down to the very last breath they take. He wants everybody to be with him. Can you imagine all these children, the billions of people that have lived through history? They're all his. They belong to him. They're all a part of him. Why would you want to kill them? He loves us. Everything he did, he created is good, and he created in love. Else, why would he want to come down here and live with us down here for us to be a part of him on this earth?
Yeah, the very last passage of Ezekiel 18, Hashem says he doesn't desire the death of those who die.
That's right.
And of course, that's not, when you read and understand what it's saying, it's not talking about the physical death.
Right. He's not talking death of the body. That's got to go. We've got to make a trade in here to a new body.
Right. But he says he doesn't desire the death of those who doesn't correct themselves. He doesn't desire that. It's not his will, or that's not his desire.
That's true. And I just love it when people teach what a judgmental and angry God he is. You know, but that's a whole nother subject. Anybody else have anything you want to add or say? Look, I want to say something. I want to invite people that there's a lot of stuff going on out there on the internet. A lot of people saying, well, this is the way it is because this is what I think it is. And they'll even bring up Hebrew scripture to back it up. They'll bring up Gemara, Talmud to back it up. When they start getting into studies and teachings like that, if they aren't Jewish and they're not learned rabbis or learned people, Jewish people that are learned in this, that part of it, you shouldn't listen to what other people have to say. When they try to give the explanations about it's this way, it's this way, and this way, and I know it because I read it, and I read in Rambam, and I read here, and I read there. That's the problem with too much digging into knowledge. If you don't have all of it together, and you don't know what the previous things were, you're not going to understand it the way it's supposed to be understood. Let me tell you what happened tonight in this talk room. I got up for a minute and I said to Terry, and it's funny, because you're Star Trek, I said, take the helm, and the first name that came out of my mouth was Scotty, from Beam Me Up Scotty.
I didn't even think about it.
And what I was saying, I was turning it over to Terry, but I said it wrong, So people can do that. You can take something and say it improperly, and people get a totally different idea what you were thinking about. And when I was up making my coffee, and I realized I said it, I said, boy, there's a reason I said it this way tonight. And it was teach me a lesson, maybe about thinking more, being more awake before I start talking. I don't know. But this is a perfect example of if people they say things, they don't fully understand them, and then the wrong impression is heard by everybody else or done. You have to go to somebody that's learned in that.
In a practical sense, it's like someone saying, well, I can change a set of spark plugs in a car. That means I can overhaul the engine. I understand everything there is about how an engine works because I know how a spark plug works. I know how it goes in, so therefore I know the whole thing.
Oh, it amazes me that people, professionals, to be learned people, they spend years and years studying. They get certified as doctors, teachers, lawyers, whatever their job is, or auto mechanic if someone goes to a vocational school, or a carpenter that takes on an apprenticeship for years to become a good carpenter. A pipe fitter does the same thing. A lathe operator does the same thing. Man, when it comes to God, everybody's an expert. You can't tell me nothing. I know what I know because I'm connected to God. Where do people get that? I don't understand where people get the. I'm going to say chutzpah. I don't know what word to use in English.
Chutzpah is really the best word.
Yeah, but I want to say it in English. So how do I say it?
I can't say that. There's ladies present, and it's very redneck.
Well, there's one I've heard before.
I think Scotty knows what I'm talking about.
Where do you get the idea that you know something about something that you don't know anything about? I just don't understand it. And they're convinced that they know it and they can do this. They can go be brain surgeon without study. Don't understand.
It's actually leftover Christianity because the New Testament brags of the leader chose unlearned people. But if you want to fool someone, you're not going to fool someone who knows anything. You're going to choose somebody who doesn't know anything. So that's really the message there. But I have people, I've talked to them, and I've asked them a question. I said, you're fixing to go to the hospital and have a surgery. Do you want a knowledgeable surgeon or someone who's bragged that they've never cracked a book, don't know how to read or write? Oh, but I'm going to go to them. No, you want somebody learned. If they're going to take a knife and cut on you, you want them to know. I mean, even with doctors that knows, and you get, say, a diagnosis, even if your doctor is knowledgeable, they'll always go get a second opinion. But when it comes to the soul, when it comes to like you're saying, God, they'd rather have people uneducated and they don't want a second opinion because they want to receive it by faith. Well, go out here and get a street person and by faith and let him do surgery on you then. See where that faith gets you.
Right.
So I go for the juggler when it comes to that stuff.
So right. Okay. Anybody else have anything you want to say? Veronica, Martha, Amuela, Chrissy, Scotty, Thomas? Okay.
I want to say thank you, Pesach. Thank you, Terry.
Well, thank you, Scotty.
Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And we're small and we're growing, and we're gonna. What I want to do is give an invitation to people, even if you have your own Facebook page out there, even if you decide you want to teach people, get together with us. In other words, let's show people that there's a group of people that are walking a certain way, and this is who these other people that are starting denominationalism within Noahidism and everything else. Stay away from. People have to learn that also. They're so used to it from Christianity. So I'm really trying to get. Look, we have almost 300 members now, I think, in B'nai Noach connection with Israel. But we see the same 9 people show up every week, maybe 10, sometimes 12. Why? Where are all these other people? Noahide Online Gathering has what, 600 or 500?
Just over 5.
And 15 people show up. I mean, that.
Yeah, they're talking about the exact same thing. They don't understand.
So what we need to do is work together. Work together. So anything you think you can do to help us out, to join with Torah for the Nations, B'nai Noach connection with Israel, let's get together, let's do it. Are you saying goodbye or you want to talk, Thomas?
Talk. I used to say, me teaching, because I'm not that bright and everything, and talking about Noahides and stuff means I live in a cesspool around this area, and people think I'm crazy. But it's funny how things happen, because a friend of mine from way back, we've been friends on Facebook now for about a year, and she just sent me a thing today asking me about how long I've been a Noahide. And I answered her back and told her I was reading Torah before that, just not the right way, because I was with the super Christians and, the Messianics. And I told her about that, and I said, she said about seeing the stuff online. I said, if you look, most of that stuff is written by Christians and super Christians. I said, you want to know, I told her about the group. I told her about the site, and I told her about Ask Noah. And I think now a couple of days ago, someone else that I'm friends with from back past asked me the same thing. So I don't know if maybe they see something different in me. Because, I mean, back then I was kind of, like bad Leroy Brown and stuff. So I'm totally different now.
That's what we're supposed to be. We said that's moving forward closer to God. And when people see this in you, they want to know how'd you do it, essentially. Again, I'm going to remind everybody, you have somebody you want to get together or somebody has questions, sit down with them if you're on Facebook. Get me involved if you're on a call. Set it up in advance. Get some people together, and I'll answer any questions that people want. I'll try to help them any way I can. And I'm willing to, just like I talk to other people at various times, talk to anybody. So if you feel that you want me to talk to somebody, you have to bring them to me. I can't go to them. But you want to bring them to me and say, wait a minute, let's sit down and talk. Let's do it. And you can ring my phone anytime. If I'm not around, I'm not going to answer. It doesn't make any difference. But most of the time, I'm answerable except when I'm in prayer times, which is morning, afternoon, and evening for about an hour during different times. But I'm willing to be up at night, willing to do whatever needs to be done.
But she asked me about that, the picture I put up on Facebook there, which is the Torah for the nations.
Yeah.
I put that up there because I wanted people to see it, and hopefully they would ask maybe.
And I appreciate that. Look, this whole thing is networking and advertising, just like Abraham started off doing it for God. And so we're doing it like everybody does for everything else. We're just networking.
I told her for the longest time I was looking for that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Mm-hmm. That's the only problem was I never found the end of that rainbow.
There you go.
Now it's reality time.
Anybody have anything else they want to talk about or question up? All right. What time is it by you guys? 10 o'clock?
9:45.
9:45. Okay.
10:45.
Oh, on the East Coast it's 10:45.
Or I mean 9:45. Never mind. Sorry.
Oh wait, you're in the same time zone. Where you coming from?
I know it hit me. Yeah.
9:45. Okay.
Had one of those brain gas bubbles.
Yeah, I got someone has asked me to be in a phone call with them tonight, so I got to wait about a half.
107 in Australia.
Yeah, and it's 4:47 in the morning here where I am. So, any of you that have your own Facebook sites and your own teaching sites and all that, it's important that people know that you're not alone. In other words, you're part of a community, you're part of a group. This is one of the things that people are looking for. In other religions, they set up ministries, and this is our ministry, and this is our stuff, and they try to get people to join in and stuff like that. Well, we're not separate from what we're all doing the same thing, and people have to see it. They have to feel it. They have to feel like they're becoming a part of an existence of something that is a community, that is a whole. Years ago, my questions I were getting, why would somebody be in Noahide? Where are they going to be buried? What are they going to follow? Who are their kids going to marry? Where are they going to go to school? And I would tell them, you're looking for the wrong things first. First, you got to be the people that make a community before you can do anything else. Then everything else falls into place. Well, the Jews have this and the Jews have that. I said, yeah, we've been doing it for 3,500 years. Of course we have it. It just didn't spring up. It took work. It took life and death. So one of the things, and this is on my level, that I feel that needs to be done is get people focused on the right way to do things. Not everybody says theirs is the right way. All the little subgroups of Noahides that are off in their own little fantasy world think they're doing it the right way. Until a group comes along, it just teaches people how to be humble, do your thing, be kind to people, don't do anything to anybody else that you don't want done to you, and leaves out all this swimming in the deep end before they even know how to walk through the shallows. They got to be somehow brought in a proper manner. Nobody, well, I won't say that because that's how I learned to swim. I got dumped in the deep end. So, but
Got thrown in the river.
actually, I got pulled into the water by something on the end of a fishing pole. I was about 4 years old, 5 years old. I'll never forget. I can even see it in my head now, going down under the water and the color of the water and everything. And I had to get back up, and then my grandmother grabbed my hand. I got pulled right off the end of a pier. But the people have to know that they have to humble themselves. And being humble doesn't mean meek, doesn't mean being somebody else's punching bag. It means if you remove the I from how you think and let God put in the way he wants you to think, that's what we're talking about. God bless you guys. Thank you for letting me run my mouth for a couple hours.
We appreciate we learned something every day.